Zach or the family that we watched on the session thing?
I think it's the session.
Okay. That's why I wasn't sure.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just what did you guys find in that?
Hold on, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. Who did we decide was going to do the summary?
Me.
Okay, so we need to get her our first and last names so she can write it down on the paper because she is the only one that submits it. We don't all have to submit.
There's a chat option on here, so if you just want to type your names over on the side, then she'll have them all on the side.
Yeah.
Let's hurry and do that real fast.
And you should be able to click on link. Does it give you a link option if you're looking at your screen? It says second try, 0 viewers, links.
Oh.
Does everyone get that? Tierney, do you have?
Yeah, I just got it. Sorry.
Morgan, are you doing the summary?
Yeah.
Okay, if you click on links, does it bring up the link to the event, to the YouTube page? Or does it not bring it up to you?
Just a sec.
Bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It should say second try, 0 viewers, links. Does it not give you that option? Here, let me just post it. Hold on. Because you're going to need to post the YouTube link as well.
Right.
Oh, hold on.
So it is recording then.
Yeah, it is recording right now. Hold on. Shoot. I'm trying to copy and paste it and it's not working. Just a second.
So I got Rachel, Kim, is it Tyranny?
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Alyssa and Janelle. Did I miss anybody?
Okay, go ahead and get started. I will figure out to post the link. I'll post the link for the YouTube in the chat box, Morgan, so you have it. But we can go ahead and start talking while I try and figure out why it's not posting.
It probably isn't posting because it hasn't. It's not a YouTube video yet.
Right. It still should give me the. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was going to. No, that's fine. So it just says, take turns talking about the points you identified, both the overt references and the more subtle ones.
And this is based off of that chapter 6 that we had to read, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Morgan, I just posted it.
Okay. I'll copy it.
Okay, do you guys want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to go over all the ones that I have. Or do you want me to go one by one, or what do you want to do?
It doesn't matter, whatever you want.
Okay. So the first part that I saw was the instilling hope and optimism, which was one of the things that they listed for the writings. And the way that he thanked them all for coming, and when he thanked them all for coming, he told them that he really appreciated that they'd be there. Another things that I noticed that he did is that he kept restating. He would ask them a question, and then he would say, now correct me if I'm wrong, or make sure I'm not doing that, or I'm not putting words in your mouth. Did anyone else notice that?
Oh, he said that throughout the whole entire thing.
Like after every single thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. It was his way of reframing. He would take what they said, and then he would reframe it and restate it, and then give it back to them in easier language for them to act upon. Does that make sense? Like they were saying that they were upset, and then he would reframe it and go, so it sounds like you were scared.
Mm-hmm.
And then they could take that, oh yeah, I was scared, and then now that they have identified that they were scared, they could act upon that versus it just bothered me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So every time they would say something to him, he would reframe it and then send it back to them for their approval of how they really feel.
Yeah.
At least that's what I noticed. I also noticed that, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that was helping to build empathetic connections too, because it was taking reactions and putting them into feelings that everybody else could understand. So I think that was helping with that.
And then he also shared a personal experience with his son too. He was relating. You know, I have a kid. You know, I get those feelings.
Right.
And it was personal.
All right. I also got on there was one of the categories was reviewing events and took stock of them, and I think he did that. I also think that he was one of the phrases that in the paper that we had to read in that chapter 6, it said clarifying ambiguity, and he did that several times. Like I said, when he restated, they would state a generic feeling or a generic thought, and then he would reframe it, restate it, and make it specific. And so instead of saying I was angry, well, you were scared because you didn't know where he was, or you thought he was going to drink, or you thought... So he clarified the ambiguity of just, he's not my brother, like with the sister when he says, he's just no longer my big brother. And then why do you feel that way? Because, and then he did the same thing with Jimmy, saying, why is she no longer your little sister? Cause, you know, and then he says, well, she nags me like Mom does.
Mom does.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Let's see, what else did I find? I think that he also, another one of the options that, or the points that was in the paper was helping families live with uncertainty. I thought that he did a good job of not saying, we're just going to fix this problem and this is what we're going to do and this is how you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't solve the problem for it, but he told them it was okay that they were uncertain as to how the problem was going to be fixed, but we would fix the problem. So he gave them the tools to live with the uncertainty of how all this was going to play out.
I think.
Go ahead.
I noticed that he did mention several times that the feelings that they were having were normal, so they can feel good about that. Like they are normal. This isn't an extreme weird reaction to whatever. So I thought he did a good job pointing that out to make them feel like, okay, the emotions and feelings that we're having are real and it's normal and we just got to work through it.
Yeah, because the father and both the son and the father said that, oh, she's overreacting, she's just freaking out. Like,
Right.
He wasn't expressing it in a healthy way, but her feelings were completely normal.
Yeah.
So
Right.
he could have expressed them a lot better.
Right. I also noticed that, did anyone else pick up on when he rearranged the seats?
Yeah.
And how they were initially sitting? So you had the mom and the daughter, then the husband and then the son. So they were on sides. It was the husband and the son on one side where they thought the daughter and the mom were overreacting. And then he switched the daughter, put the daughter on the outside, and put the parents together. And then he got the parents on the same team. And then he switched Jimmy and the daughter to put Jimmy and the parents on the same team. Now, it was a subtle reframing of not only, he wasn't using words, he was using their physicality because they were physically separated. Then he got the parents on the same page and had them sit next to each other. And then he moved the daughter off the love seat for 3 and then moved Jimmy and the parents on 1. Did anyone else find that? I found that totally fascinating.
It was a small difference, but like that physical space really separates you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Not just the emotions and the situation.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I also thought it was kind of interesting because the husband and wife didn't sit next to each other. And for me, that was kind of a tip-off that they might have been having some tension in their relationship. So the fact that he did end up moving them together so that they could be working together because they're the ones that are in charge of this situation. And then, I don't know, there was a part in the chapter that talked about connectedness. So they were all involved in what was going on, and instead of feeling separate and having their own ideas of what was happening, he got them to join together as more of a group, I guess.
Well, I thought it was kind of funny that he made him ask his wife out on a date at the end.
Well, he said it's not a date if there's not a date. And
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed at the end was that he made them all kind of take responsibility for fixing it. It wasn't just, Jimmy, you need to do better.
That's what you think at the beginning. Oh, he's just a mess up.
You're like, oh, this kid's making mistakes. He's not, he's not telling his parents where he's going, and he's not talking to them, and, it's all his fault. But in the end, it was, okay, Jimmy, you and Dad do something to work together, and, Dad and Mom, you need to be on the same team, so you go on a date and, have time together. And it was, everybody is part of the solution, and everybody's part of the problem, and it's a group effort to fix it. It's not one person's fault.
Yeah, because looking at that, I didn't think that everyone was the problem, but everybody really was the problem. They all contributed.
Yeah.
Well, in a family, like as a system, like, all the parts are interdependent on each other. So if one part's not working, it makes the others not work right either. So it makes sense. I mean, you think, oh yeah, it's that one part's fault, but all the other parts aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing either. So
yeah, that's true.
In that respect, it really is a group effort to fix the problem.
I thought it was really interesting how everybody's emotions were misinterpreted. Every single one of them. Like, Jimmy thought his parents hated him, and that was just the opposite of what they really were doing, is trying to figure out how to help him and love him. So it was just really interesting how all that came out.
Well, and then he's like, oh, my parents think I'm drinking and doing bad stuff. He's like, but I'm really not. I'm not doing any of that.
But it surprised me that conversation hadn't happened prior to being there. He seemed very scared of saying that he wasn't, but why didn't he? I mean, why didn't he just go, look, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing any of this. I'm not doing anything bad. But it was almost like he was looking for attention. So he was trying to cause trouble by not explaining what he was doing.
Right.
He wanted to stir up his parents. And I was really impressed because my first reaction was to go, come on, Jimmy, just communicate to your parents what you're doing and where you're going, and your life's going to be so much easier. But he didn't. He refrained from jumping on either bandwagon. He remained very neutral in regards to, this is how you feel, this is how you feel, and I'm just the facilitator to help you understand how you feel, and I'm not going to pass judgment, and I'm not going to jump on the blaming bandwagon.
See, I didn't see it that way. I saw him as not saying... Sorry. Yes, I see. Go play. I saw him not saying anything about whether or not he was drinking. It wasn't so much to, like, get back at his parents, but it was more like, they don't care, so why should I tell them? He was feeling like, they're yelling at me, they don't care about me, they don't love me. Why would any of this matter to them?
Yeah, the whole time, like, for most of it, he had the attitude, like, I'm just going to do what I want. I'm an adult. They don't care. Why should I care?
Yeah, so to me it wasn't like, oh, well, they're yelling at me, so I'm not going to tell them and I'm going to let them get all mad. It wasn't like an attack. It was more like it was more like protection for himself. Like, he saw it as protecting himself.
Yeah.
And that just flabbergasted me. I don't understand how you can think that someone asks you where you're going, that they're just doing it to be crappy to you, that they really don't care about you, that they just want to control you without. And so I totally find that unrealistic.
But at this point, the parents weren't asking anymore. At this point, the parents were yelling. The parents were demanding. It wasn't anymore like, I care about you and I just, want to know where you're going, and that's it. It was, you need to tell me, you need to do this, and lots of yelling, and that doesn't help facilitate conversation.
Well, and then also, the mom, she's like, well, he gets home at 1, 2, or 3 in the morning. I don't know where he's been. And then she's like, I'm just too tired to deal with it, so I'll make my husband do it. And he thinks that she's overreacting anyways. So she's putting him in a situation that he doesn't want to be in or thinks that kind of like makes it worse too, because then he's like, well, I don't want to deal with this. This is stupid.
Right, and my first thought was Mom and Dad need to get on the same page, because if that were my husband, I'd be sitting there smacking him going, dude, I don't care if you agree with me in private, but you will not disagree with me in public. This is our son. Why he's not telling us what's going on.
Yeah.
Because he's getting validation from Dad that what he's doing is perfectly acceptable.
So that's probably confusing for him. Like, if you don't agree with that, then you need to find something in the middle, and you can't do that in front of your kids, because then the kids are like, well, what am I supposed to do? You know?
Right.
Confusing.
Another one of the things I noticed is that he took the problem and externalized the problems. That's also one of the points that they talk about. Is he took the problem, which they thought was the problem, and then kind of turned it inside out and realized that the problem really wasn't about whether or not he was telling him where he was going. It was about that Mom thought so-and-so doesn't like, that Jimmy doesn't like me because he just leaves, and Jimmy's thinking, Mom and Dad don't like me, so I'm just leaving, and they should know that I'm leaving because I think they don't like me. So he actually uncovered the real problem by digging into the perceived problem.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too, because up to this point, I don't even think Jimmy knew what the real problem was.
Yeah.
He's just mad and and from my perspective, he's just graduated from high school. Like, I remember being ready to get out of my house and go and be an adult as much as I possibly could, but I just kind of think he feels cooped up and he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he kind of needs to get more of a plan. But like I said, up to that point, I don't think he even realized that the problem was he felt like his parents didn't care about him. The counselor made him realize, oh, this is why I'm so mad about everything.
Well, I think that's a hard place to be in, though, because he does depend so much on his parents. You know, they pay for his food. You know, he's living there for free. And so, like, I can understand having rules, because you're just going to have rules all the time and responsibility and as an adult. And
I think, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go.
Well, I think the counselor was trying to get to that because, like, dude, get a job. Jimmy, get a life, get a job. And the counselor was like, hey, maybe you guys should drive around and discuss jobs and careers. And so I think he was kind of planting that seed a little bit without saying, dude, you need to get it together.
Because he does. He's 18. You can't skate all day long. But I think that they weren't coming across it the best way. They were probably like, you're a loser, get a life.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
saying that, but that's probably how he took it.
I think the interesting thing is he can't even address Jimmy not getting home on time. He can't address Jimmy not getting a job. He can't address Jimmy doing nothing with his life until he gets Mom and Dad talking and on the same page.
Yeah.
Because until they agree what they expect from Jimmy, which this conversation should have happened years ago of, you know, I mean, my oldest is 13. It's very obvious. I've said to him, if you're living in this house and you're not going to college, you will be working and you will have rules. And if you don't like it, get a job and move out. I mean, this is a conversation we've had several times in my house. But he's got to get Mom and Dad on the same page long before he can address Jimmy's behavior.
Yeah. That is so true. Okay, does anyone else have anything to add, or should we move on? The next one.
I also had, they talked about building empathetic connections between family members. I think by reframing it and refocusing it, he got down to past the behavior to the feelings. And because he was able to discuss the behavior and then reframe it to Jimmy's out late, well, Jimmy leaves and I feel like he doesn't love me, to the mom, he got past the behavior to the feelings so they could start showing empathy to how the other one's feeling. He was very big on, can you see how your mom would be scared? Do you see how Jimmy would feel like you don't care about him? So he tried to uncover and show both sides so they could start being empathetic towards each other.
Well, and then he also said, I see here that you guys all really just care about each other. He said something like that. But you guys
Yeah.
just don't know how to show it. You're all showing it wrong. Something along those lines.
Yeah, the whole idea, if they didn't care about me, they wouldn't. If they didn't care about you, they wouldn't care where you were going. They
Yeah.
wouldn't care if you got home. They wouldn't care when you got home.
Your sister yells at you because she loves you and she's worried,
Mm-hmm. Let's see, what else did I have?
He did a good job at building family strengths when he encouraged them all to, you guys go on a date, you and dad go do this, you and sister go do this.
Yeah.
He was able to build that strength with each
Right.
of them.
I thought that too, Morgan. I thought that he did a good job pointing out all of their interests at the beginning. Like, so everybody kind of understood, what, they thought was fun, and then they found that common ground with camping that they all liked. So, yeah, I thought that too, Morgan.
Well, and I also thought that I put that actually under the subheading of adopting a positive, future-oriented focus. Because he didn't say, let's fix this. He just said, let's come up with a plan. You go on a date, let's reconnect mom and dad. You guys go on a date, and it's not a date without a date. And then, Jimmy, take your sister out. Let's just remember what it's like. He didn't say, we're going to solve this problem tonight. He said, let's do this, make a plan, meet with them, and then come back and talk to me. And I think that also worked under the collaboration and teamwork subheading of it, too. It was very much, he was coming up with a plan to go ahead saying, we can solve this problem, and didn't just leave them with, well, I'll see you next week. He actually gave them homework and praised them for doing the work or be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Well, and that also goes along with the future-oriented focus. Like he said, to take 30 minutes of one day and talk about this problem. So.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
All right. Anyone have anything else to add? Okay, so we're going to move on to the second part. It says, note the trends of your finding as a group. Did everyone identify the same points, or were there points that not everyone caught? I kind of feel like we kind of went over that.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone
I think
else
so, too.
anything that they wanted to add on that? Anything you noticed?
I thought it was kind of interesting how when it all came down to it, they all mentioned how much they hated the fighting, which obviously I would think that people wouldn't like to fight, but when they're fighting so much, it makes me wonder, like, the mindset of, oh, this is solving the problem, but then ultimately it's driving them all crazy, so it's making the problem even worse. So I just thought that was interesting how all of them brought up the point that they didn't want to fight anymore.
But you know what? In a situation like that, though, I think it would be hard not to.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing where you're at? And then, well, you're my sister, don't be my mom. And then my parents, they just are yelling at me. Like, that's hard,
I think it's great that they all were dissatisfied with the fighting, though, because I think that's a great start for fixing what's wrong.
Because then they're like, oh,
Yeah.
there is a problem,
Yeah, they all see that there's a problem. They're all not happy with how they're all dealing with it, so that puts them in a better place to take a step to fix it. And
Because
you're more
it would be hard if Jimmy was like, oh, nothing's wrong, or his sister, I'm not doing anything wrong, If someone's not on board, then it's going to be hard to fix it and change it. But since everyone was, they're like, oh, I don't like this. We need to do something to fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so the next part says, talk about your observations. Was anyone surprised by the findings or observations? So anything you noticed you thought was interesting?
Well, I do think it was interesting, like someone mentioned earlier, about how when Jimmy was talking about the problems, he kind of got to the root of a bigger issue, that something that we hadn't thought of at the end there. I forget who mentioned that. Somebody said that. Maybe it was Janelle.
What
No.
was it again?
At the end when he was like, I forget how he worded it, but he was basically getting to the bottom of a bigger problem than just the issue of not being home and not knowing what he was doing. Like how he
Like
really,
his parents didn't care. Is that what you
yeah,
mean?
like they didn't care. And so that was like kind of a twist. We all kind of thought that he was just being Jimmy and being difficult, but really there was a lot of feelings, it turns out,
Feelings
involved.
were hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of surprising.
I did too, because I really didn't think about it, because I'm just like, oh, he's just going through a phase.
Yeah.
Who he is, what he wants to do, and he's found some loser friends. You know, lots of kids do that.
Yeah.
You know, he's gone off and he's like, my family doesn't care about me. All they do is yell at me. They're mad at me all the time. They don't like me.
Yeah.
When really they really care about him and they're just like concerned.
Yeah. So that's the only thing that I thought of that was different than what I thought it was going to be.
Well, and for me, I kind of thought getting to know you and find out at the very beginning, I thought that was just really genuinely getting to know how the family functioned. But he asked a certain question, and then all of a sudden he used those and tied right in. He didn't go, okay, now let's talk about what we're here to talk about. He was very much used it as a stepping stone to understand the family dynamics and really figure out how this is working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really good, because then he gave him a way to what's the word I'm looking for? Make a connection, like, oh, Jimmy likes the skate park, so I'll go to the skate park with him. Something like that. You guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The words are failing to come to me today.
And then, like, telling the dad that he needed to try that skating move. He used those to connect the family. Like, he used their little things. Oh, you want to skate? So let's skate. Why don't you take your dad with you? And
Well, and also, one thing I thought was interesting that we haven't mentioned, I think was kind of a problem, was that when they were talking about him never being home, Jimmy's like, well, Dad's never home.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't really brought up later.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
Well, you know, maybe he is at work too much or goes out with his buddies or something. And I think it's important to have a dad home. And then the mom's like, well, we know where he is. And I was thinking, well, yeah, you know where he is, but is he home enough?
Right.
That wasn't brought up anymore. Because you know, we brought up how him and his wife didn't sit by each other, so maybe he's avoiding being at home,
Yeah.
working more hours just because he doesn't want to deal with the drama.
That's very possible.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so the next one, it says discuss and record how a treatment professional or paraprofessional might prepare to capitalize on such opportunities to introduce or reinforce these type of resilience factors from Walsh's article.
What?
Discuss and record how a treatment professional or paraprofessional might prepare to capitalize on such opportunities.
Sorry, I was talking to my son. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Do you guys want me just to type the question out because it's kind of long? Did you guys get it? It's kind of confusing.
yeah, I got it.
It's kind of confusing.
I'll type it out just so I know everyone gets it.
Well, I don't know if this is going exactly what the question is asking for, but one of the resilience factors that were talked about in the chapter was collaborative problem solving, which I think the counselor definitely began to introduce to them in the session, but he also created opportunities for that to continue after they leave. So it's not just, oh, we went to the counselor, now we're done. It's got to be a continuous process that they all have to work together to do. So that's something that I think they can practice and reinforce in their lives.
Well, the thing that I noticed is it talks about those things that made them resilient. And remember, he talked about they used to go camping a lot, and they used to do all of these different things, and they used to, before Dad worked, he was referencing all the things that they used to do that would help them maybe get back in touch with those things that made them resilient before. And like camping and all the different times they used to spend together as a family, I thought that was critical, that they used the information he gained as a reminder of what they can and cannot do together as a family that made them resilient before they came and moved, that made them strong. And they've stopped doing that, which kind of is a chink in their armor.
I thought it was interesting, too, how he kind of touched on a little bit of religion when he talked about the parents joining together and sort of having help from the other side, and focus a little bit on a belief system. And maybe he knows something that we don't know. Maybe they have quit going to church or whatever since they've moved, and that kind of maybe might bring them back to a happier place.
Mhm. Well, then he also mentioned, he's like, I don't know if you guys are religious or not, but then he goes to say,
Yeah.
find something that's common.
Yeah.
Do together that will strengthen you and bring you together.
Well, and his communication was awesome. Like, he clarified everything.
Yeah.
He was able to share, like, I think you feel this way, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody ever corrected him.
Yeah. Well, and then I also like how he didn't put anyone down. Even though everyone was making all these mistakes and acting out of turn, he's like, oh, you shouldn't do that, that's stupid, you're making everyone feel bad. He was, how does it make you feel when, he does this, or how do you think it makes your mom feel when you do that? Do you think she's worried? He was kind of putting the family members in each other's shoes. They're like, oh, it does hurt their feelings.
Well, I think a way to answer that question would be, I think somebody said it a little bit earlier, homework. Making them accountable for stuff. Assigning them different things every week would be a way to treat it and capitalize on it, is doing things not just in the session but outside the session. Making them accountable for that date, making them accountable for that car ride and the Coke he was going to share with his sister. That's ways to keep it flowing throughout the week without just having it be a therapy session and that's it, and we go home and go back to doing what we were.
Yeah, because he said he's going to ask them about it at their next session.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we have to do it. He's going to ask us.
I think that's a good way to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and something else that I think of, if you think of being the therapist in this situation, you have, it says how might you capitalize on these opportunities to introduce these resiliency factors. I think when you're in that position, you have a lot of influence over the situation and a lot of ability to teach people the things that they need to know to cope with what they have. And that's not necessarily saying, like, going into a situation and saying, okay, family, here's what you need to do to make everything better. Because he never said that. He never said what you need to do is to communicate better and spend more time together and do that. What he did instead is kind of taught by example. Instead of saying, do this, this, and this, he set up activities and things to help the family teach themselves these things and to strengthen these relationships that, where they obviously were struggling, they obviously were having trouble empathizing with each other. And through reframing, he was able to show them those feelings and to help them realize how to do that. So I think you're in a position to have a big effect on people without even like sitting down and doing a formal, here's how you fix your problems. But
right,
more of a...
I think the biggest thing is that he wasn't trying to fix their problems. He was giving them the tools to fix their own. So I think as a paraprofessional or as a therapist going into any type of counseling, realizing that it's not about you or what you think, it's about how well you can teach those people in front of you to communicate and come up with this and decide on their own, giving them the keys. Yeah, you could have said do this, this, and this, but then a year from now something bad happens. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to make that problem solving on their own. So he's teaching them how to problem solve. He's teaching them how to communicate and what they need to do to get on the same page so they can affect change.
Exactly. Instead of you need to communicate better, it's why don't you guys sit down and get to know each other a little bit? Instead of saying this will fix your problem, he's setting them up with the skills to cope with other problems, not just this problem. And I think
sorry.
I was going to say, and I think as a professional, that's a big thing, that a big effect that you have and that you can use to your advantage.
Well, and like also with just like telling them to communicate, you know, it's so easy to say, but stepping back, like, well, I don't know how to communicate with them. I have so much. There's so much we don't have in common. But like when he pointed out, you know, you guys can do this together, you guys can do that together. He was giving them an opportunity that they didn't know was really there, probably.
He was teaching them how to change their life style.
Yeah.
If communicating was easy, they'd already be doing it.
I know, that's why
They need to know how to do it.
And like it wasn't even hard. He said, you know, 30 minutes. You know, just go on a date, have a Coke. You know, that's not even a big deal.
I think one thing that was really important for them too is they realized that they could talk about it in a pretty calm and rational manner instead of yelling and fighting about it. And the counselor obviously would probably influence that a lot, but as they go back to do more counseling sessions, he can maybe try to talk less and less and let them talk more and more so that they can practice how they would act if he wasn't there with them, so that they can not yell at each other about it.
Well, and having done it once, you can do it again. You think to yourself that you can do it again because you've already done it. You've sat down, you've been rational, you've had a relatively pleasant conversation about it, like nobody got heated. And once you've done that once, it's like, okay, we did this. We know how to do this. We've done it. We can do it again.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. So do you guys want to hear the notes I took? I just did bullet points for all the questions. I hope you're okay with that.
Well, that's
great.
So for the first one, the points that we identified was installing hopes and optimism by thanking them for all coming, reframing by asking a question and then restating. He related a personal experience, reviewed events and took stock in them. And that might be a typo. He clarified ambiguity, I can't say that, by restating. Helping families live with uncertainty. He didn't solve them, but told them that it was okay and it could be fixed, and he could help them with that. Normalizing the stress, he told them that it was normal. Rearranged them so they were physically and mentally on the same page. Made them all take responsibility to fix it, not just Jimmy. Externalized the problem. He turned the problem from Jimmy not telling the parents to the parents feeling like Jimmy doesn't like them, and also and Jimmy feeling like his parents don't like him. Building empathetic connections between family members. He was able to get down to the empathy so they could understand each other better. Teamwork by sending each of them to do something with each other. And future-oriented focus by sending them to take 30 minutes that week to discuss. The second one I put, for the second question, we all found most of the same things, some good points that people caught, and others didn't, such as moving the seats. Some of the things we were surprised by were moving the seats. We were surprised that there was more feelings involved than what we saw at the first part of the video, and getting to know them and then he tied all those connections in. We were surprised that he didn't bring up the issue of the dad not being home. And then the last point with a professional or paraprofessional, I put collaborative problem solving, talk about the things he used to do that reminded them what made them resilient before, discussed a little religion or belief system with them. Communication was key. He was never negative. He made them accountable for things. He taught by example, and he wasn't trying to fix the problem, but give the family the tools needed. So.
Good job, Morgan. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Anybody
Sounds
else
great.
have anything?
Nope, it sounds good.
All right. So I just turn it in, right?
Yeah.
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 I turn in and put our names on and put the link to the view it.
Okay. Perfect. I can do that. I'll turn it in right when we hang up then.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. See ya.
Talk to